Picture this, a Sunday morning so quiet you could hear a meme being shared. The year is 2024. The coffee is lukewarm, and the American people are bracing themselves for yet another week of political shenanigans. Little did they know, history, or at least really awkward history, was about to be made. Amidst the existential dread of a Sunday morning, a beacon of potential comedic gold flickered on TV screens across the nation. This was Kamala Harris on Fox News, a combination more volatile than mixing Mentos and Diet Coke in your uncle's prized NASCAR collection. The Fox News set, gleaming like a freshly used tanning bed, was ready. The studio lights were practically buzzing with anticipation, reflecting off the impossibly white teeth of the news anchor. He was flanked by more American flags than a 4th of July parade, each one seemingly trembling with the knowledge of the verbal fireworks about to erupt. The coffee mugs were strategically placed just out of reach of any potential flying objects, a silent testament to the network's experience with volatile guests. The air crackled with a tension so thick you could cut it with a soundbite. But there was no escaping it. The interview was about to begin, and America held its breath. Our protagonist, Vice President Kamala Harris, strode onto the set like a boss. She was a vision in power suits and perfectly coiffed hair, the picture of grace under pressure. But behind that carefully constructed facade, you could almost see the wheels turning, strategizing, calculating. Her smile was polite, professional, but there was a glint in her eye, a mischievous spark that suggested she knew exactly what she was walking into. She'd brought her A-game, her shade-throwing sunglasses, and enough metaphorical fire extinguishers to put out a dumpster fire of epic proportions. The audience leaned forward in their seats, sensing that this was not going to be your average run-of-the-mill interview.
You could tell this wasn't going to be your grandma's cup of chamomile tea.
The host, bless his heart, was clearly relishing the opportunity to grill the vice president. He adjusted his tie, a gesture that screamed, "I'm about to unleash my inner Mike Wallace," and launched into the interview with the subtlety of a bulldozer in a china shop.
Kamala, for her part, maintained her composure, her expression a study in serene indifference. She sipped her water, Fiji, naturally, each sip a silent act of defiance.
The questions came thick and fast, each one more loaded than a Thanksgiving turkey. But Kamala, she was ready. She dodged, she weaved, she countered with the agility of a seasoned politician. And so it began, the interview that would go down in history, or at least in the annals of things that made us briefly forget about our existential dread. The first few volleys were about as exciting as watching paint dry. But hey, even political brawls need a warm-up act. The interview began with the usual pleasantries, a carefully choreographed exchange of smiles. They danced around the weather, surprisingly mild for this time of year, the latest viral cat video, all the while sizing each other up. The host, bless his heart, tried to play it cool, but you could practically see the gears turning in his head. Kamala, on the other hand, exuded an air of effortless grace, her smile as bright and welcoming as a freshly painted crosswalk. They discussed the upcoming election, which at this point was less of a race and more of a slow-motion train wreck. The host, clearly itching to steer the conversation towards more treacherous waters, bided his time.
So the economy, it's a bit of a mess, wouldn't you say?
The host began, his voice dripping with faux concern. He leaned back in his chair, adjusting his American flag pin with the air of a man who had just delivered a knockout punch. Kamala, however, remained unfazed.
The economy is a complex issue, and it's important to consider all the factors at play.
Her voice was as smooth and soothing as a jazz saxophone solo. The host, clearly hoping for something a little more inflammatory, shifted in his seat. Undeterred, he pressed on, rattling off a series of statistics about inflation and unemployment. Kamala, however, was ready for him. Now Kamala, she's got this look that could melt glaciers, or at least make you rethink that last snarky comment. It's a subtle thing, this side eye, a slight narrowing of the eyes, a barely perceptible twitch of the lips, but it speaks volumes. The host, bless his heart, seemed completely oblivious to the silent message being conveyed through Kamala's masterful use of facial expressions. He continued to pepper her with questions about the administration's economic policies. Kamala, for her part, maintained her composure, her voice calm and measured, but her side-eye, oh honey, that side-eye was working overtime. It was a thing of beauty, a masterclass in nonverbal communication. The audience, both at home and in the studio, were glued to their screens, captivated by the subtle drama unfolding before their very eyes. The internet, that glorious beast of memes and misinformation, was having a field day. As the interview progressed, a strange phenomenon began to occur.
People at home, armed with their smartphones and an insatiable appetite for real-time fact-checking, started live tweeting the interview.
Every statistic cited, every claim made was instantly scrutinized, analyzed, and, if necessary, debunked in 180 characters or less.
The host, unaware of the digital storm brewing around him, continued to press his case.
Kamala, on the other hand, seemed to draw strength from the online support, her smile widening ever so slightly as she delivered a particularly well-placed zinger. The host, momentarily stunned into silence, tried to regain control of the narrative. But Kamala, she was on a roll.
She parried his questions with the grace of a seasoned fencer, her wit as sharp as her tailored suit. The audience, both in the studio and at home, were on the edge of their seats, witnessing a masterclass in political maneuvering.
This wasn't just an interview. It was a verbal duel, a battle for the hearts and minds of the American people. And honey, Kamala came to win.
Realizing his initial line of questioning wasn't having the desired effect, the host decided to switch tactics. With the subtlety of a sledgehammer wrapped in velvet, he attempted to steer the conversation towards more divisive issues.
But Kamala, she saw right through him. She wasn't about to fall for those tired old tricks. She gracefully sidestepped the bait, her smile as unwavering as her commitment to not letting this interview turn into a political circus.
She refused to be drawn into a shouting match, instead choosing to engage with the issues, to offer thoughtful, nuanced responses. Ah yes, the classic attempt to undermine a woman's accomplishments by attributing them to, well, being a woman.
The host, bless his heart, decided to pull out the oldest trick in the misogynistic playbook. With a smirk so oily it could lubricate a bicycle chain, he implied that Kamala's rise to power was less about her qualifications and more about identity politics.
He tried to mask his intentions with a veneer of faux concern, but you could practically see the thought bubble over his head.
Kamala, however, didn't miss a beat. She met his gaze with a look that could freeze lava, a look that said, "Honey, I've been dealing with this nonsense since before you could even spell patriarchy."
Remember those metaphorical fire extinguishers? Yeah, she brought the industrial-sized ones for this round. With the grace of a seasoned diplomat and the precision of a brain surgeon, Kamala proceeded to dismantle the host's argument piece by piece.
It's interesting that you seem to think a woman's identity is somehow a disadvantage in the political arena. Perhaps you haven't been paying attention to the incredible work being done by women leaders across the globe.
She reminded him, and everyone watching, of her long and distinguished career in public service, a career built on hard work, dedication, and representing the voices of those who have been historically marginalized. The host, visibly flustered, tried to interject, but Kamala wasn't finished. Meanwhile, the internet, that digital peanut gallery we all know and love, was having a collective meltdown. Hashtags like #KamalaHarris, #FoxNewsFail, and #IdentityPoliticsIsReal were trending faster than a cat video involving a Roomba and a cucumber.
GIFs of Michelle Obama throwing shade and Oprah giving away cars were being shared with reckless abandon. It was a glorious, chaotic mess, and everyone, it seemed, had an opinion.
Political commentators, both amateur and professional, were frantically tweeting their analyses, each one more insightful than the last, or at least they pretended to be. Memes were being created at a rate that would make even the most dedicated meme lord blush.
Celebrities, never ones to shy away from a good social media frenzy, jumped into the fray, offering their own words of support for Kamala and their thinly veiled disdain for the host's line of questioning.
Even brands, those soulless corporate entities that usually avoid anything remotely controversial, couldn't resist getting in on the action, tweeting out vaguely inspirational messages about empowerment and equality that were as subtly promotional as they were timely. Now, I'm no expert in facial expressions, but I'm pretty sure the look on the host's face at that moment could curdle milk. He'd gone into this interview hoping to rattle Kamala, to expose her as a weak link, to score a viral soundbite that would make his bosses proud. Instead, he'd inadvertently given her the platform to deliver a masterclass in dismantling sexist rhetoric. And the internet, bless its heart, was eating it up. His carefully crafted questions, designed to trip her up, had been effortlessly deflected. His attempts to paint her as out of touch, radical, or heaven forbid, too emotional, had backfired spectacularly. And now, here he was, live on national television, his face a mask of thinly veiled panic, as the realization dawned on him that he'd become the villain in this story. The camera, that cruel mistress, zoomed in on his face, capturing every twitch, every bead of sweat, every flicker of doubt. It was the kind of close-up that could make even the most seasoned news anchor question their life choices, the kind of close-up that would haunt his dreams for weeks to come. The audience, both in the studio and at home, couldn't tear their eyes away. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck, a car crash in real time, a dumpster fire of epic proportions, and yet they couldn't look away. The temperature in the studio seemed to rise a few degrees, and it wasn't just the studio lights. The air crackled with tension, a palpable energy that could have powered a small city. The audience, sensing they were witnessing something truly extraordinary, leaned forward in their seats, their eyes glued to their screens. This wasn't just an interview anymore. It was a cultural moment, a battle for the soul of America, or at least a really entertaining way to spend a Sunday morning.
Now let's try to move on to less controversial topics.
The host, clearly flustered, tried to regain control of the interview. He cleared his throat, adjusted his tie for the 100th time, and attempted to steer the conversation towards safer, less controversial waters. Kamala, sensing his discomfort, couldn't resist a sly smile. She had successfully navigated the minefield of misogynistic questioning, emerging from the fray unscathed, her reputation enhanced, her point proven. The interview, which had begun as a carefully orchestrated attempt to discredit her, had morphed into a powerful testament to her resilience, her intellect, and her ability to dismantle sexist double standards with the grace of a seasoned pro. The host, realizing he was outmatched, desperately tried to regain control of the narrative. His attempts were futile as the conversation spiraled further out of his grasp. He was like a captain trying to steer a ship through a hurricane, his carefully planned course blown wildly off track. The storm was relentless, and every effort to right the ship seemed to push it further off course. The questions became more frantic, less about eliciting thoughtful responses, and more about trying to salvage a shred of dignity, or at least avoid becoming the subject of the next viral meme. The host's desperation was palpable, his voice trembling as he struggled to maintain composure.
Let's circle back to the economy. Maybe we can talk about some numbers? The host's voice wavered, betraying his unease.
He tried to circle back to the economy, a topic he clearly felt more comfortable with, perhaps because it involved fewer discussions of gender equality and systemic bias. The shift was an attempt to regain some semblance of control, but it was clear he was on shaky ground. But even his usual arsenal of statistics and economic jargon seemed to fall flat, his delivery lacking the usual air of authority. The numbers, once his stronghold, now seemed like a flimsy shield against the onslaught of pointed questions.
Well, if we're talking numbers, let's discuss the impact of systemic bias on economic outcomes. The politician's voice was steady, each word a calculated move in the ongoing battle.
Kamala, sensing his desperation, didn't let up. She pressed on, her questions sharp and unrelenting, each one a precise strike. She continued to respond to his questions with a mixture of facts, figures, and subtle shade that left him reeling. Her confidence was unwavering, her demeanor calm and collected. The audience, both in the studio and at home, watched in awe, witnessing a masterclass in political maneuvering. Every response from Kamala was met with a mixture of admiration and astonishment. It was like watching a chess match between a grandmaster and, well, a pigeon who'd accidentally wandered onto the board. The grandmaster's moves were deliberate and strategic, each one bringing the game closer to its inevitable conclusion. The pigeon, bless its heart, was clearly out of its depth, but it was strangely compelling to watch it strut around, pecking at the pieces, completely oblivious to the fact that it was about to be checkmated. The contrast between the two players was stark, yet the spectacle was undeniably captivating. Kamala, like a verbal ninja, dodged and weaved around his questions with the agility of someone who'd clearly spent some time in the political dojo. Her responses were swift and precise, leaving no room for error. She was a master of the well-placed pivot, the strategic sidestep, the art of answering a question without actually answering it. Each word was chosen carefully, each phrase meticulously crafted to serve her purpose.
Infrastructure spending is crucial for our future, and here's why. It's about creating jobs, improving our roads and bridges, and ensuring a better quality of life for all Americans.
She could turn a query about foreign policy into a discussion about infrastructure spending without breaking a sweat, seamlessly transitioning from one topic to another as if they were naturally connected, leaving the host and the audience wondering how they'd even gotten there. It was a skill that left many in awe and others in utter confusion. Her ability to stay on message, to weave her talking points into even the most unexpected conversations, was a thing of beauty. It was a testament to her training and experience in the political arena. It was like watching a master weaver at work, effortlessly creating a tapestry of words that was both intricate and impactful. Each thread of conversation was carefully placed to form a coherent and compelling narrative.
But, let's get back to the topic at hand. The host, clearly struggling to regain control, attempted to steer the conversation back to his original questions.
The host, meanwhile, seemed increasingly flustered. His carefully planned questions were being deftly sidestepped, leaving him scrambling for a foothold. He clearly planned on leading the conversation, on setting the agenda, but Kamala had other ideas. She was steering the ship now, and there was no turning back. She wasn't there to play his game, to dance to his tune. She had her own rhythm, her own agenda, and she was sticking to it. She was there to deliver her message, to connect with the American people, and to show the world that she wasn't someone to be underestimated. Her confidence was palpable, her determination unwavering. The audience, initially drawn in by the promise of a train wreck, found themselves captivated by Kamala's performance. They were witnessing something extraordinary, something that went beyond a simple interview. They weren't just watching an interview, they were witnessing a masterclass in political strategy, a clinic in how to navigate a hostile interview and come out on top. It was a lesson in the art of deflection, taught by one of the best in the business. Back in the real world, people were starting to question if their Sunday brunch mimosas had been spiked with something a little stronger than orange juice.
The internet, that digital echo chamber of opinions and hot takes, had gone into overdrive.
Memes were being created and shared at a rate that would make even the most dedicated meme lord blush.
Social media feeds were flooded with reactions ranging from the insightful to the absurd, from the witty to the downright bizarre.
Pundits, those professional dispensers of political wisdom, were having a field day, dissecting every word, every glance, every perfectly timed sip of water.
Cable news channels, never ones to miss an opportunity to engage in a little self-promotion, had their talking heads working overtime, analyzing the interview ad nauseum.
Even those who normally wouldn't be caught dead watching a political interview on a Sunday morning found themselves drawn in by the sheer spectacle of it all.
It was like a car crash, a train wreck, a dumpster fire of epic proportions, and yet they couldn't look away.
The interview had become a cultural moment, a shared experience that transcended political affiliations.
It was a reminder that even in these divided times, there's still something we can all agree on. A good old-fashioned political showdown, especially when it involves a healthy dose of awkwardness and unintentional comedy.
You know that feeling when you think of the perfect comeback hours after the argument? Yeah, the internet was having a collective what she should have said moment.
From witty one-liners to elaborate takedowns that would make even the most seasoned debater jealous, the internet was overflowing with suggestions for how Kamala could have responded to the host's questions.
Screenshots of the interview, complete with captions outlining the perfect retorts, were being shared with the speed of a particularly juicy piece of gossip.
People were creating alternate versions of the interview, complete with voiceovers and special effects, showcasing their own comedic timing and political savvy.
It was a collective exercise in wish fulfillment, a chance for people to live out their fantasies of verbally sparring with a political opponent, albeit from the safety of their own homes.
Of course, no one actually expected Kamala to resort to the kind of snarky comebacks that would make even the most seasoned roastmaster blush.
But that didn't stop the internet from having a little fun imagining what could have been. Through it all, Kamala maintained her composure, her smile as bright and unwavering as a solar eclipse chaser's safety glasses. Her demeanor was a beacon of calm in the storm of political discourse, a reminder that grace and poise still have a place in modern politics. No matter how awkward or uncomfortable the questions got, she never lost her cool. Her ability to stay collected under pressure was nothing short of remarkable, a skill honed over years of public service and countless high-stakes situations.
She never stooped to the level of her interviewer, never resorted to personal attacks or cheap shots. Instead, she chose to rise above, demonstrating that true leadership is about maintaining integrity and respect, even in the face of adversity. She remained focused on the issues, on delivering her message, and on reminding everyone watching why she was elected vice president in the first place. Her commitment to her principles and her vision for the country shone through every word she spoke.
It was a masterclass in grace under pressure, a testament to her years of experience in the political arena. Her ability to navigate the complexities of political interviews with such finesse was a clear indication of her seasoned expertise. She understood that every word, every gesture, every facial expression was being scrutinized, analyzed, and yes, meme-ified. In the age of social media, where every moment can be captured and shared instantly, her awareness of this reality was evident, and she refused to give her detractors the satisfaction of seeing her crack. Her steadfastness was a powerful statement, a declaration that she would not be easily rattled or swayed by negativity.
The interview was a reminder that sometimes, the best way to win an argument is not to engage in it at all. By choosing not to react, she demonstrated a level of self-control and strategic thinking that is rare in today's political climate. Sometimes, the most powerful weapon in your arsenal is your own composure, your own ability to rise above the fray and maintain your dignity, even when you're being bombarded with questions designed to do the exact opposite. Her calm demeanor was a shield, protecting her from the chaos around her.
And in that moment, Kamala Harris showed the world that she was more than capable of handling whatever came her way. Her performance was a clear message to her supporters and critics alike that she was a leader of substance and resilience. She was a force to be reckoned with, a leader who refused to be defined by her critics, and a politician who understood the power of a well-placed side-eye. Her ability to command respect and maintain her composure was a testament to her strength and character, qualities that will undoubtedly continue to serve her well in her role as vice president. The interview, like a particularly awkward family reunion, finally came to an end. The host, visibly relieved, thanked Kamala for her time, his smile as genuine as a telemarketer's promise of a free cruise. Kamala, ever the picture of grace, thanked him for having her, her smile suggesting she had a million other places she'd rather be, like maybe on a beach somewhere, sipping a margarita made with unicorn tears. The credits rolled, the studio lights dimmed, and the two old guys who had wandered in by mistake finally remembered where they were supposed to be. Turns out it was bingo night at the senior center. The world, or at least the part of the world with access to cable news and a functioning Wi-Fi connection, breathed a collective sigh of relief. The interview, which had promised to be a train wreck of epic proportions, had somehow managed to be both more entertaining and less disastrous than anyone could have predicted. It was a testament to the enduring power of awkwardness, the enduring appeal of a good political showdown, and the enduring ability of the internet to turn even the most mundane events into a meme-worthy spectacle. The internet, never one to let a good meme opportunity go to waste, went into overdrive. Screenshots of Kamala's most epic side-eyes, her most perfectly timed retorts, and her most subtly shady smiles were being shared with the speed of a particularly juicy piece of gossip.
GIFs of her dodging awkward questions like a ninja warrior were making the rounds on social media. Someone even created a Kamala Harris bingo card, complete with squares for awkward silence, condescending chuckle, and that look. Spoiler alert. By the end of the interview, everyone had bingo.
The interview had cemented Kamala's status as a meme queen, a title she wore with the same effortless grace she brought to everything else. She had become a symbol of resilience, of intelligence, and of the power of a well-placed side-eye. And the internet, bless its heart, was here for it. So what did we learn from this whole Fox News fiasco? Well, for starters, never underestimate the power of a good side-eye. Also, never underestimate the internet's ability to turn even the most awkward situations into a meme-worthy spectacle. But perhaps the most important lesson is this. Kamala Harris is a force to be reckoned with. She's smart, she's funny, and she's not afraid to stand up for what she believes in, even when she's being grilled by a Fox News anchor who's clearly out of his depth. So the next time you find yourself facing a challenging situation, channel your inner Kamala. Put on your best power suit, practice your side-eye in the mirror, and remember, you got this. And if all else fails, just remember, the internet's got your back. Or at least it'll provide some hilarious memes to get you through the day.